The massive space station hung in the darkness near the center of the galaxy. Its metal walls stretched for miles in every direction. Inside its largest meeting room, beings from dozens of different worlds sat around a circular table that glowed with soft blue light. High Chancellor Vorthak stood at the head of the table. His gray skin looked almost silver under the bright lights. His forearms moved as he spoke to the other leaders. Each movement was careful and planned, like everything else about the Galactic Dominion Council. "We have conquered 47 worlds in the past 2 cycles," Vorthak said. His voice echoed through the room. "Our empire grows stronger with each victory. Today, we choose our next target." A hologram appeared above the table. It showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet looked peaceful and quiet. White clouds moved slowly across its surface. "This is Earth," Vorthak continued. "The third planet in a system the locals call Sol. Our scouts report that the dominant species calls themselves humans." Commander Thexara of the Calthonian Empire leaned forward. Her red eyes studied the rotating planet. "What are their defenses like?" she asked. "Primitive," replied Vorthak. "They have barely left their own planet. Their weapons use chemical explosives and metal projectiles. They have no energy shields, no plasma weapons. They still burn fossil fuels for most of their energy." Laughter filled the room. The leaders from different worlds found this information amusing. How could such a backward species pose any threat? "Their population?" asked another council member. "Approximately 8 billion, Vorthak answered. "They live in separate nations that often fight each other. They have never united under a single government. Our intelligence shows they waste enormous resources on conflicts between their own kind." Commander Thexara nodded slowly. She had led many successful invasions for the Dominion. "They sound like easy prey. My fleet could conquer them in a matter of days." "Excellent," said Vorthak. "Commander Thexara, you will lead this mission. Take your full battle fleet. The humans will either surrender immediately or face complete destruction." The hologram changed to show detailed images of human cities, weapons, and spacecraft. Everything looked small and weak compared to Dominion technology. "Why do we want this particular world?" asked a council member with green skin and tentacles where arms should be. "Strategic location," Vorthak explained. "Earth sits at the edge of a spiral arm. Once we control it, we can use it as a base to conquer hundreds of nearby systems. The humans are just in the way." Commander Thexara studied the images more carefully. She saw pictures of human soldiers carrying simple guns. Their vehicles moved on wheels or tracks instead of hovering. Their largest ships were tiny metal boxes that could barely reach their own moon. "What about their psychology?" she asked. "Do they fight hard or surrender easily?" Vorthak's expression showed amusement. "Our behavioral analysts say humans are ruled by emotions instead of logic. They make poor decisions when stressed. They care too much about individual lives to make smart tactical choices. Some reports even suggest they risk their own lives to save their enemies during battle." More laughter echoed through the chamber. The idea seemed ridiculous to the council members. Why would any intelligent species save their enemies? Such emotional weakness will make conquest simple. Thexara said. "When should I begin the attack?" "Immediately," Vorthak replied. "Prepare your fleet and depart within 2 standard days. Send the usual surrender demand when you arrive. If they refuse, destroy their major cities as an example. The survivors will submit quickly." Meanwhile, millions of light years away, Jin Seojun sat in front of a wall of monitors at the Deep Space Monitoring Station. The facility was built into a mountainside in South Korea. Outside, snow fell quietly on the pine trees. Jin had worked at the station for 3 years. His job was to monitor signals from space and watch for anything unusual. Most days, he detected nothing but natural radio waves from distant stars and galaxies. Today felt different. For the past several hours, his instruments had been picking up strange energy readings from the outer solar system. The signals were too regular to be natural. But they didn't match any known human technology. Jin adjusted his headphones and fine-tuned the receivers. The signals were getting stronger. Something big was moving toward Earth's solar system, and it was moving fast. Dr. Elena Martinez walked into the monitoring room carrying a cup of coffee. She worked for the United Nations Xenobiology Institute, studying the possibility of alien life. Most people thought her work was a waste of time, but Jin found her ideas fascinating. "Anything interesting today?" she asked, settling into a chair beside him. "Maybe," Jin replied, pointing at his screens. "I'm getting some weird readings from near Jupiter. Could be equipment problems. But..." Elena leaned closer to look at the data. Her dark eyes grew wide as she studied the patterns on the screen. "Jin, these readings show massive energy signatures," she said quietly. "Multiple objects, each one larger than our biggest aircraft carriers. They're in formation and moving toward the inner solar system." Jin felt his heart beating faster. "You think it could be?" "Alien spacecraft," Elena finished. "I've been warning people about this possibility for years. We need to contact the UN immediately." Jin reached for the emergency communication line, but Elena stopped him. "Wait," she said. "Let's gather more data first. If we're wrong, we'll look foolish. If we're right, we need to be absolutely sure before we cause a worldwide panic." For the next several hours, Jin and Elena tracked the approaching objects. The energy signatures grew stronger and clearer. Whatever was coming toward Earth was definitely artificial and definitely not human. Commander Thexara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the small yellow star grow larger on the main screen. Her fleet of 200 warships had just dropped out of hyperspace near the edge of the human solar system. "Status report," she commanded. "All ships reporting ready for battle," replied her tactical officer. "Weapons charged, shields at full strength. We are detecting primitive radio transmissions from the third planet." "Good," Thexara said. "Begin monitoring their communications. I want to understand how quickly they realize they're about to be conquered." On Earth, Jin Seojun's instruments suddenly went wild. Energy readings spiked across all his monitors. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "Elena," he called. "You need to see this." Elena ran to his station and stared at the screens in shock. The approaching objects had just appeared near Jupiter. They were massive, clearly artificial, and there were hundreds of them. Jin's hands shook as he reached for the emergency communication line. Earth's quiet isolation in the galaxy was about to end forever. The emergency meeting at the United Nations building in New York had been going on for 6 hours. Leaders from every major country sat around a large table, their faces showing fear and confusion. The evidence was clear. Alien ships were approaching Earth. President Sarah Chen of the United States spoke first. "Our military analysts confirm the objects are definitely spacecraft. They're using technology we don't understand. Our best weapons would be useless against them." The Russian representative nodded grimly. "Our nuclear submarines and missile systems are like stones and sticks compared to what's coming. We need to consider surrender. After system, our Don." "Surrender?" The Brazilian delegate stood up angrily. "We haven't even tried to communicate with them yet. Maybe they come in peace." Mine. 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 General Park from South Korea shook his head. "The formation they're flying suggests military purpose. These ships are positioned for an attack, not a peaceful meeting." At that moment, every communication device in the room began making noise. Phones rang, computers beeped, and radios crackled to life. The alien fleet was sending a message. The main screen at the front of the room flickered and showed a frightening figure. Commander Thexara appeared, her red eyes glowing, and her sharp teeth visible as she spoke. Primitive humans of Earth, she began. I am Commander Thexara of the Galactic Dominion. Your world has been selected for conquest. You have 1 Earth day to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons. Submit to Dominion authority. And your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will destroy your cities one by one until you beg for mercy. The transmission ended, leaving the room in shocked silence. Several delegates began arguing loudly about what to do. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others insisted on fighting despite the hopeless odds. Meanwhile, back at the monitoring station, Jin So-jun stared at his equipment. The alien message had been broadcast on every frequency. There was no doubt about what it meant. They want us to surrender, Elena said quietly. What are we going to do? Jin thought about the message he had just heard. The alien commander had sounded cruel and confident. She clearly expected humans to give up, without any resistance. I don't know what the governments will do, Jin said, but I know what I'm going to do. Elena looked at him with surprise. What do you mean? Jin began typing commands into his computer. I'm going to send them a message back. Jin, you can't just respond to an alien invasion fleet on your own. Elena protested. You need permission from the UN, or the military. By the time they decide what to say, it will be too late, Jin replied. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? They're already planning to destroy us. Jin connected his station's transmitter to the most powerful antenna array on Earth. The system was designed for deep space research, but it could send signals far into space. What are you going to tell them? Elena asked. Jin paused for a moment, thinking carefully. I'm not going to threaten them or beg for mercy. I'm going to tell them who we really are. He began speaking into the microphone, his words being broadcast toward the alien fleet. My name is Jin So-jun. I'm a human from Earth. You say you're here to conquer us, but you don't know anything about us. Let me tell you what humans really are. 1. Act next. Elena watched nervously as Jin continued his transmission. Humans are the species that travels across oceans to help strangers during natural disasters. When earthquakes destroy cities, humans from other countries come to help dig people out of the rubble. When floods destroy homes, humans send food and medicine to people they've never met. Jin's voice grew stronger as he spoke. Humans are the species that creates laws to protect civilians during war. Even when we fight each other, we have rules about not hurting innocent people. We have hospitals that treat wounded enemies. We have organizations that feed hungry children in countries that hate us. On the alien flagship, Commander Thexara listened to the strange message with confusion. This wasn't the surrender or threat she had expected. Humans, Jin continued, are the species that risks extinction to save other animals. We create protected areas for creatures that can't protect themselves. We spend billions of resources to keep endangered species alive, even when it costs us money and land. The message was being received across the alien fleet. Many of the soldiers had never heard anything like it before. We're the species that teaches our children to help others, even when it's dangerous. We tell stories about heroes who sacrifice themselves to protect innocent people. We honor those who give their lives to save others. Far away in the outer rim of the galaxy, an ancient artificial intelligence detected Jin's transmission. Zephyr 9 had been dormant for thousands of years, waiting and watching. The AI had been created by a race called the Guardians, who had vanished long ago. As Zephyr 9 analyzed Jin's words, ancient databases activated. The AI began comparing human behavior patterns with Guardian historical records. The similarities were extraordinary. We know you're more powerful than us, Jin said into the microphone. Your ships are faster, and your weapons are stronger. But power isn't the only thing that matters. The question is, what do you do with your power? Jin paused, looking out the window at the snow-covered mountains. Humans use whatever power we have to protect those who can't protect themselves. That's who we are. That's what we do. If you want to conquer us, you should know that you're not just fighting soldiers. You're fighting a species that believes the strong should protect the weak. The transmission ended. Elena stared at Jin with amazement. Jin, that was either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Before Jin could respond, his computers began detecting new activity. Zephyr 9 had awakened and was broadcasting its own message across the galaxy. Attention, all civilizations. The AI's voice carried across space. I have detected the emergence of a guardian successor species. The humans of Earth display behavioral patterns identical to the ancient guardians. They prioritize protection over conquest, cooperation over domination. The AI's message spread faster than anyone could stop it. The Galactic Dominion deliberately destroyed the Guardians because they opposed conquest-based expansion. Now, the Guardian spirit has emerged again in an isolated species called humans. They have developed the same protective instincts independently. On hundreds of worlds, the message was received by civilizations that had been conquered and oppressed by the Dominion. For the first time in centuries, they felt hope. Commander Thexara watched her command screens with growing alarm. Ships in her own fleet were receiving the AI's message. Some of her officers were talking quietly among themselves about ancient legends of the Guardians. Commander, her tactical officer reported, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Conquered worlds are asking the humans for protection. Some of our own ships are requesting clarification of our mission orders. Thexara realized that Jin's simple transmission had done something no weapon could do. It had reminded the galaxy that there was an alternative to conquest and domination. The single human message was spreading chaos throughout the Galactic Empire, and there was no way to stop it. Across the galaxy, Zephyr 9's message spread like wildfire through the communication networks. The ancient AI had activated relay stations that the Dominion thought were destroyed long ago. Within hours, every civilized world had received the transmission about humanity and the Guardians. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, slave workers stopped their digging when they heard the message. For 3 generations, they had been forced to extract rare metals for the Dominion. Their overseer guards carried energy weapons that could kill instantly. Did you hear that? Whispered Jalar, an elderly miner with scars covering his blue skin. The AI says the Guardians have returned. The stories our grandparents told were true. His friend Nexus nodded carefully, making sure the guards couldn't see him. The humans. They protect others instead of conquering them. Just like the old legends said the Guardians did. Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds. In the Andromeda sector, a group of scientists who had been forced to develop weapons began secretly sending messages of support to Earth. On the agricultural world of New Harvest, farmers who had their crops stolen by Dominion tax collectors started organizing resistance groups. The rebellion was spreading, but it wasn't happening the way most revolutions did. Instead of violence and destruction, the uprising was based on hope and protection. People weren't fighting to destroy the Dominion. They were fighting to find someone who would protect them. High Chancellor Vorthok stood in his private chambers, watching reports flood in from across the Empire. His 4 arms moved frantically as he tried to process all the information. Sir, his assistant reported nervously, we're receiving rebellion activity reports from over 200 worlds. Military units are refusing orders. Some entire fleets have gone silent. Vorthok's gray skin turned darker with anger. How can one primitive transmission cause this much chaos? It's not just the transmission, sir, the assistant explained. The AI is broadcasting historical records that we thought were destroyed. People are learning the truth about what happened to the Guardians. For centuries, the Dominion had told a false story. They claimed the Guardians had been destroyed by a natural disaster. In reality, the Dominion had systematically hunted down and eliminated the Guardian race because they opposed conquest and protected weaker species. The humans, Vorthok said slowly, must be destroyed immediately, before this infection spreads any further. Meanwhile, Commander Thexara faced a crisis on her own flagship. Half of her crew were Calthorians, who remembered the old stories about the Guardians. Many of them were having serious doubts about the invasion. "Commander," her weapons officer said quietly, "my grandmother used to tell stories about the Guardians. She said they saved our world from raiders when our people were too weak to defend themselves." Thexara looked around her bridge. She could see the uncertainty in her crew's eyes. These were soldiers who had followed orders without question for years. Now they were thinking about what those orders really meant. "The humans haven't attacked us," another officer pointed out. "They sent one message about protecting others. That doesn't sound like an enemy." Thexara felt torn between her duty to the Dominion and the growing doubts in her mind. She had spent her whole life following orders, but she had never questioned whether those orders were right. On Earth, Jin Seojun found himself at the center of something much bigger than he had expected. His communication station was receiving thousands of messages from across the galaxy. "Elena, look at this," he called. "I'm getting signals from dozens of different species. They're all asking for help." Elena read over his shoulder as the messages appeared on screen. Each one told a story of oppression and suffering under Dominion rule. From the Zephyrians: "Our children are taken to work in Dominion factories. Please, help us get them back." From the Aquatic Coalition: "Our oceans are being drained for Dominion terraforming projects. Our species will be extinct in 50 years. From the Crystal Singers: "Dominion mining operations are destroying our sacred sites. We have nowhere left to go." Jin stared at the messages in shock. "Elena, these people think we can help them, but we don't even have spaceships that can reach other planets. An example. Thanks for watching. And we see in the Dord." Also sighed. "ND unround. BDO. NDO. NDO. "Maybe that's not what they need," Elena replied thoughtfully. "Maybe they need something else that humans are good at." Dr. Elena Martinez had spent years studying alien psychology through theoretical models. Now she was seeing real alien civilizations for the first time. And they were all asking for the same thing: protection. "Jin, start recording responses," she said. "We may not have weapons or spaceships, but we have something else." Jin activated the recording system as Elena began speaking. "To all civilizations receiving this message, this is Dr. Elena Martinez from Earth. We have heard your calls for help. While humans don't have the technology to travel to your worlds yet, we want you to know that you're not alone anymore." She paused, thinking carefully about her words. Humans believe that everyone deserves protection from those who would hurt them. We believe that the strong should help the weak, not exploit them. We're going to find a way to help you, even if we don't know how yet. The message was broadcast across the galaxy, and the response was immediate. More civilizations began sending messages of support. Some offered to share technology with Earth. Others promised to defend human space if the Dominion attacked. But the most surprising response came from within the Dominion military itself. Entire units began defecting, claiming they wanted to serve the new Guardians instead of the Empire that had oppressed their home worlds. Commander Thexara received orders directly from High Chancellor Vorthok. "Destroy Earth immediately. Do not wait for surrender. The human infection must be eliminated before it spreads further." She stared at the orders for a long time. Around her, the bridge crew waited to see what she would decide. These were soldiers who had trusted her leadership through many battles. "Commander," her tactical officer said quietly, "the humans have done nothing to hurt us. Their only message was about protecting others. And now half the galaxy is asking them for protection," added another crew member. "Maybe the humans really are like the Guardians our ancestors remembered." Thexara made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. "Send a message to the human communication station," she ordered. "Tell them I want to speak with them directly." "Ma'am?" her communications officer asked in confusion. "Tell them," Thexara continued, that I have information they need about the Dominion's final attack plans. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Their commander was defecting from the Dominion to join the humans. Also, Thexera added, send a general message to the fleet. Any ship that wants to join the human alliance is free to do so. Any ship that wants to follow Dominion orders can continue toward Earth. Within an hour, Thexera discovered that most of her fleet had chosen to join the humans. Only about 30 ships remained loyal to the Dominion. The rest were now protectors instead of conquerors. High Chancellor Vorthak realized that his empire was falling apart. The simple human transmission about protection and cooperation had done more damage than any weapon ever could. He prepared the Dominion's final response, a massive death fleet that would destroy Earth and end the Guardian awakening forever. The news reached Earth through Commander Thexera's first communication with Jin So-jun. Her red face appeared on his monitor, but her expression was worried instead of threatening. Human Jin So-jun, she said, I am Commander Thexera. I was sent to conquer your world. But your transmission changed everything. I need to warn you. High Chancellor Vorthak is sending a death fleet to destroy Earth. Jin looked at Elena with concern. How long do we have? 2 standard days. Thexera replied. The death fleet has 1,000 ships, each one capable of cracking your planet's surface. But you should know, many species across the galaxy are coming to help defend Earth. Elena leaned closer to the microphone. Commander, why are you helping us? Aren't we your enemies? Thexera was quiet for a moment. My grandmother told me stories about the Guardians when I was young. She said they saved our world from raiders who wanted to enslave us. When I heard your message about protecting others, I remembered those stories. What can we do? Jin asked. We don't have space weapons or energy shields. You don't need weapons, Thexera said. You need to do what Guardians do best. Organize protection for those who can't protect themselves. Over the next several hours, Jin's communication station became the center of the largest alliance in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together, all inspired by humanity's example of protection over conquest. The Aquatic Coalition offered to provide water purification technology for refugee camps. The Crystal Singers promised to use their sonic abilities to help coordinate communications across language barriers. The former mining slaves from dozens of worlds volunteered to help build defenses. Dr. Elena Martinez found herself coordinating diplomatic talks between species that had never spoken peacefully before. She worked for 18 hours straight, helping translate not just words, but entire cultural concepts. The Zephyrians don't understand why the metal workers want to help, she explained to Jin during a brief break. Their species have been at war for 300 years. What did you tell them? Jin asked. I explained that humans believe anyone can change if they choose protection over destruction. The metal workers heard our message and decided to stop making weapons for the Dominion. Now they want to make medical equipment for refugee hospitals instead. Meanwhile, Zephyr 9 was doing something that amazed everyone. The ancient AI was downloading Guardian technology directly into human computer systems. These are defensive systems only, the AI explained to Elena during one of their conversations. The Guardians believed that weapons should only be used to protect, never to conquer. What kind of technology? Elena asked. Energy shields that can protect entire planets. Medical scanners that can heal injuries in minutes. Communication systems that can translate any language instantly. The Guardians developed these tools to help younger civilizations, not to control them. Elena stared at the information appearing on her screens. The technology was incredibly advanced, but it was all designed to help and protect rather than harm. There's one more thing, Zephyr 9 added. The Guardian technology responds to the user's intentions. It won't work for conquest or cruelty. Only beings with genuine protective instincts can use it. This created an interesting situation. Many of the defecting Dominion soldiers discovered they could use Guardian technology while others found it wouldn't respond to them at all. The technology itself was teaching them about their own motivations. Commander Thexara arrived at Earth with her rebel fleet, just as other Allied ships began appearing throughout the solar system. She was amazed by what she found. Instead of military preparations, Earth's orbit was filled with hospital ships, refugee transports, and supply vessels. Humans had used the Guardian technology to build massive medical facilities and emergency shelters. "What are those structures?" she asked Jin during their first face-to-face meeting via video link. "Refugee centers," Jin explained. "We're expecting wounded soldiers from both sides during the battle. We're also preparing to evacuate civilian populations from any worlds that get caught in the fighting." Thexara had never seen anything like it. Every other species prepared for war by building weapons and fortifications. Humans were preparing for war by building hospitals and refugee camps. "You're planning to help wounded Dominion soldiers?" she asked in disbelief. "Of course," Elena replied. "Injured people need medical care, regardless of which side they were fighting for." This attitude spread quickly through the Allied fleet. Instead of preparing for a battle of conquest, they were preparing for a battle of protection. The goal wasn't to destroy the Dominion, but to defend the principles of cooperation and care. High Chancellor Vorthak's death fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system right on schedule. 1,000 massive warships dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons charging for planetary destruction. But Vorthak was shocked by what he found waiting for him. The Allied fleet protecting Earth included ships from over 100 different species. Former enemies were flying in formation together. Dominion deserters fought alongside their former targets. The entire galaxy seemed to have united against conquest. "This is impossible," Vorthak muttered to his tactical officers. "How can one primitive species cause this much unity?" "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving broadcast messages from the Allied fleet. They're not threatening us or demanding surrender." "What are they saying?" Vorthak asked. The officer looked confused as he read the message. "They're offering medical aid for any of our wounded soldiers. They're promising to treat prisoners according to humanitarian laws. They're asking us to consider whether conquest really makes our lives better." Vorthak felt his anger growing. Fire on their lead ships, destroy their medical facilities, show them what happens to those who oppose the Dominion. But when he gave the order to attack, something unexpected happened. Many of his own ships didn't fire. Some weapons officers refused the order. Others deliberately aimed at empty space instead of enemy ships. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "approximately 40% of our fleet is not responding to fire commands." The battle that followed was unlike any conflict in galactic history. Instead of each side trying to destroy the other completely, the Allied fleet focused on disabling Dominion ships and rescuing their crews. Human-coordinated medical ships flew into the middle of the fighting to pick up wounded soldiers from both sides. Refugee transports evacuated civilian populations from nearby worlds. Supply ships delivered food and medical equipment to anyone who needed it. The Dominion soldiers who had been forced to fight began to see what they were really fighting against. They weren't fighting an enemy army. They were fighting against the idea that strong people should protect weak people instead of exploiting them. More and more Dominion ships stopped fighting and asked to join the alliance. Some entire battle groups switched sides in the middle of the combat. Jin So-jun continued broadcasting throughout the battle, but his messages weren't military commands. Instead, he talked about what they were all protecting. "We're not fighting to destroy anyone," he said. "We're fighting to show the galaxy that cooperation works better than conquest. We're fighting to prove that protecting others makes everyone stronger." His words reached even the Dominion soldiers who were still fighting. Many of them began to question whether they really wanted to be part of an empire that solved problems through destruction. By the end of the first day of battle, High Chancellor Vorthak realized that he was losing the war not through military defeat, but through moral transformation. His own soldiers were choosing to become protectors instead of conquerors. High Chancellor Vorthak stood alone on his command bridge, watching his empire fall apart around him. Half of his death fleet had already joined the human alliance. The other half was fighting without enthusiasm, many deliberately missing their targets. "Sir," his remaining tactical officer reported nervously, "3 more battle groups are requesting permission to withdraw from combat." Vorthak's forearms clenched into fists. "Denied. Any ship that stops fighting will be destroyed by our own forces." But even this threat wasn't working anymore. The Dominion soldiers had seen something they had never experienced before. An enemy that treated prisoners with kindness and wounded opponents with medical care. The turning point came when Vorthak's own flagship was damaged by an explosion in the engine room. The ship began falling toward Earth's gravity well, its systems failing one by one. "Emergency evacuation protocols," shouted the engineering officer. "All hands to escape pods." Vorthak refused to abandon his ship. He had built his entire life around the idea that strength meant domination. If that idea was wrong, then everything he had done was meaningless. "Sir, we need to evacuate now," his officers pleaded. "No," Vorthak replied. "I will go down with my ship. Let the humans see what happens to their enemies." That's when something happened that changed everything. Jinseo Jun's voice came over the communication system. "Dominion flagship, this is Earth communications. We're detecting system failures on your ship. We're sending rescue vessels to help evacuate your crew." Vorthak stared at the communication panel in disbelief. "They want to rescue us? After we came here to destroy their world?" Within minutes, human and allied ships surrounded the failing Dominion flagship. Instead of attacking while it was defenseless, they were organizing the largest rescue operation of the entire battle. Dr. Elena Martinez personally coordinated the evacuation. "All rescue ships. Priority is crew safety. Dominion soldiers are to be treated as refugees, not prisoners. Medical teams stand by for wounded. Crew 7. Elena." Vorthak watched through his view screen as human rescue ships docked with his vessel. He expected to be dragged away in chains. Instead, a young human medic named Sarah Kim approached him with medical supplies. "Chancellor Vorthak," she said politely, "you have a head injury that needs treatment. Please come with me to the medical bay." "You know who I am?" Vorthak asked. "I came here to destroy your planet." Sarah nodded as she cleaned his wound. "Yes, sir. We know. But you're hurt now, and hurt people need medical care. That's what humans do." For the first time in his life, Vorthak experienced being helped by someone who had no reason to help him. The humans gained nothing by saving his life. They did it simply because it was the right thing to do. As Sarah worked on his injuries, Vorthak began to understand what Jin's original transmission had really meant. Humans didn't protect others to gain power or advantage. They did it because protection was more important than conquest. "Why?" he asked Sarah. "Why save the life of someone who wanted to kill you?" Sarah smiled as she finished bandaging his head. "Because that's what makes us different from you. You think strength means hurting others. We think strength means helping others." The rescue operation continued for hours. Human medical teams worked alongside alien doctors to treat wounded soldiers from both sides. No one was abandoned. No one was left to die. Commander Thexara found Vorthak in one of the human medical facilities. The former chancellor was sitting quietly, watching human doctors save the lives of Dominion soldiers. "Strange, isn't it?" she said, sitting beside him. "They have every reason to hate us. But they're treating our people like family." Vorthak nodded slowly. "I've spent my whole life believing that power meant the ability to destroy. These humans have shown me that real power means the ability to protect. Las. I think." Around them, the medical facility buzzed with activity. Humans worked alongside dozens of alien species, all focused on healing and helping, rather than fighting and destroying. Jinseo Jun approached them, carrying a small device. Chancellor Vorthok, Commander Thex Ara. We need to ask you something important. What? Vorthok asked. The galaxy needs new leadership, Jin explained. Someone who understands protection better than conquest. Will you help us build a new galactic council based on cooperation? Vorthok was quiet for a long time. Everything he had believed about power and leadership had been proven wrong. But maybe there was a chance to build something better. What would this new council do? He asked. Elena Martinez joined the conversation. Help species solve problems without war. Protect worlds that can't defend themselves. Share technology and resources so everyone can prosper. Like the Guardians did, Thexara added. Like the humans are doing now. Vorthok looked around the medical facility. He saw former enemies working together to save lives. He saw humans sharing their most advanced technology freely with anyone who needed it. He saw what the galaxy could become if protection replaced conquest. Yes, he said finally. I will help you build this new council. But I want to understand, how do humans make these decisions? How do you choose protection over power? Jin smiled. We ask ourselves a simple question. Will this help others or hurt others? Then, we choose to help. The new Galactic Alliance was established 3 months later. Instead of being built on conquest and domination, it was founded on protection and cooperation. Jin Seojun became the Alliance's chief communications officer, helping hundreds of species talk to each other and solve problems peacefully. His original transmission about human protective instincts had become the founding document of galactic peace. Dr. Elena Martinez served as Earth's first ambassador to the Alliance. She worked to ensure that the mistakes of the old Dominion would never be repeated. Her specialty became helping species understand each other's different ways of thinking. Commander Thex Ara helped establish new military protocols, focused on protection rather than conquest. Her forces became peacekeepers and rescue workers instead of invaders. Even High Chancellor Vorthok found a new purpose. He used his knowledge of the Old Dominion to help free oppressed worlds and establish fair governments. His greatest achievement was dismantling the slave labor systems he had once enforced. Zephyr 9 continued to provide guardian technology to species that demonstrated genuine protective instincts. The ancient AI became a teacher, helping younger civilizations learn from the mistakes of the past. The galaxy discovered something that changed everything. True strength didn't come from the ability to conquer others, but from the wisdom to protect them. Humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating their enemies. It was transforming them into friends through the simple power of moral example. Earth became known throughout the galaxy not as a military power, but as the world that reminded everyone what civilization was really supposed to be about. And Jin Sojun's simple transmission about human protective nature became the message that brought peace to the stars. Years later, when new species were discovered, they weren't greeted with conquest ultimatums. Instead, they received messages of welcome and offers of protection. The galaxy had learned that the best way to grow stronger was to help others become stronger too. The age of conquest was over. The age of the Guardians had begun again, and this time, it was led by humans who proved that the greatest victory was turning enemies into allies through compassion, courage, and an unshakable commitment to protecting those who could not protect themselves.